What is this video and what is the purpose? As I released my videos, certain questions came to light. These questions were sometimes about the content of my words, and sometimes asking for clarification. This is what I hope to address, as well as additional pieces of lore learned since. As to not waste time, let's jump right into it. I'll post a list of the topics in the description with timestamps. In my third installment, I referred to the race created by the pygmy as humanity. But then in the first I referenced them, humanity, as having always lived above the arch trees. The latter is more correct, and I feel the need to clarify what has been said. Humanity, or a formation close enough to it, has definitely always existed, or at least they've been around long before the war between the gods and dragons broke out. What I meant in the third installment was that the pygmy soul is spread throughout those humans that are cursed with the dark sign, the undead. They are the same people that have always been atop the arch trees, as opposed to Gwyn and anyone else with a significant soul. But now some die and come back to life, per the pygmy lord soul, as the undead. This would be the fourth lord soul shown in the intro. I forgot to mention something rather important in my second entry, something about souls that is not commonly believed. As far as I understand it, there are far more souls than the four that were claimed by the lords. By lords I mean Gwyn, Nito, Izalith, and the pygmy. Contrarily, I believe many others have souls, and not just the shards that Gwyn passes around before going to become kindling. There are two kinds as far as I can tell, demon souls and artificial souls. Don't take too much stock in those names, as they are merely my words for them, but the former does have the implication of the game being a prequel. By demon souls I mean that they also took their power from the flames. They did, however, not receive those nearly as strong as the primeval lords. That term I steal from Quelaag. With certainty, I believe the following bosses, or dead people, have souls from the flame: Ornstein, Smough, Quelaag, Sif, Ciaran, and Go. Gwyn only split up his soul to give to certain people, his children and the four kings. I believe the others I listed did not need his power necessarily, because they were already strengthened enough by their own procured souls to battle the dragons in the first place, long before Gwyn had to split his soul at all. My primary reason for believing this is because despite that we know Gwyn did not give them any of his soul, they drop one, and they are labeled specifically for their former owner. Ornstein drops Ornstein's soul, for example. Additionally, it would take quite a power to kill the dragons, and Ornstein wouldn't be called Dragon Slayer if he hadn't fought and killed the beasts before Gwyn chose to become kindling. The second kind of soul, the artificial kind, would be the one that is created and given to, or implanted within, someone. Priscilla, the Iron Golem, and the Moonlight Butterfly are linked to this. Seath created the Moonlight Butterflies as an experiment, and his daughter, being the product of gene manipulation, probably, likely has a far soul as well, but still one that grants her tremendous power. The Iron Golem was a soul fused with the bones of an everlasting dragon as per his core's description, originally a bone of an everlasting dragon. And the dragon bone fist description, the gods fused the power of the soul with the great bones of the dragons, forming an appropriate core for the giant golem. So, in this case, my take is that after the dragon slaughter was said and done, they scoured the flame again and found another soul, and Seath probably created the Iron Golem in an experiment. I suppose that makes it a hybrid of the two soul variations I listed. I also want to say that perhaps Quelaag and her fellow transformed sisters did not gain a soul until being altered by their mother. It's easy enough to believe that being manipulated by the bed of chaos could fabricate a soul of sorts. Also, the combined strength of the seven daughters casting fire spells with their Lord Soul Mother is believable enough to be able to burn the dragon's world down. I should have mentioned in my sixth installment, when discussing Priscilla, that I have a reason as to why she is hated for being a crossbreed. It's unfortunate for her, and sadly for us real humans in the real world, a common enough thing to be hated for being mixed. I use that word tentatively because I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. This is not about my beliefs or preferences at all. I'm a free-loving guy who wants to hug Priscilla and doesn't give a second glance to an interracial couple. I say that with gigantic quotation marks. However, there are sections of any country, and even individuals in any city, that are repulsed upon seeing a white and black relationship, or whatever two skin colors you want to select to make this sadly true. These same people are also furious if there are children involved. Priscilla is a victim of that kind of hatred, especially since she is half the very race the entire population was recently slaughtering, likely believing they were an evil enemy, that is to say, the dragons. I doubt Havel was the only one who disliked Seath being around, and so this mob mentality would be forceful against his half-dragon bastard child. As far as Priscilla's parents are concerned, I technically did not eliminate the other choices, which would be the dragon in Ash Lake, some other discarded everlasting dragon, the genes of any drake, or the undead dragons. It's unfortunately hard to say for sure about any of them because the game deliberately leaves the answer unknown. I can say that it is unlikely that Priscilla is the daughter of any everlasting dragon, because they were all killed off before her conception. That doesn't make it entirely impossible, however, since there is a descendant of the dragons living in secret in Ash Lake. I definitely don't believe the undead dragons are candidates because they are, in fact, undead. We have not been shown any evidence that anything except a journey to Lordran remains for those who turn undead. There's also a theory about a Cthulhu head possibly being the mother. These are the creatures at the bottom of the Duke's archives. They are former maidens of Guinevere's transformed hideously by more of Seath's experiments. Again, there's no evidence against this, or against any of the suggested candidates. There are, however, much stronger suggestions that Seath and Guinevere are the parents. This will already be known if you've watched the specific vid in which I brought it up, but I believe I know what the Flame God Flann is. We know Guinevere went off to a faraway land to marry him. This is according to the Ring of Sun Princess. We probably won't ever know who he is, but he wouldn't be called a flame god if he did not have an expertise with fire. It's always sort of been assumed that the Ceaseless family were the only people who used flame magic, but this is unfairly unlikely. There easily could have been hundreds or thousands of people who used fire as a form of magic, including Flann. The land that Guinevere ventures to in order to marry him, a land far away, could have been Boletaria or somewhere near, and he could have continued to teach the art to pupils, who would eventually come to Sage Frake and Yuria from Demon Souls. Those of you who watch Epic Name Bros lore series know that I have been proven quite wrong on something. Ian B. translated a portion of the Design Works art book that was released in Japan, in which the director, Miyazaki, explained that Ceaseless is in fact the brother of the Daughters of Chaos, and therefore Aizelith's son, and not one of the daughters themselves. This would also mean two other things. The charred ring is in fact the centipede demon, and that I can no longer claim to know the location of all 7 daughters. I'm out of guesses, so perhaps they all did not survive the demoning process? There is a second theory that the centipede demon is the 7th daughter, and that she transformed because of the lava while hoping to recover the ring, so that she could in turn rescue her brother. I don't even know if I buy this, though I do like it more than the centipede demon just being a ring. The third theory, the one I somewhat prescribe to, is that the centipede demon is the gigantic hand of the brother, Ceaseless. That boss does seem to only have one arm, and the centipede demon does have multiple extremities. The last thing is that there is actually a lot of missing dialogue from the game, and I could go on for hours theorizing over it all, but instead there are only a handful of things I wish to discuss. Huge props go to Michael Kobayashi for his efforts, and I will put a link to his dialogue dumps in the description, just in case someone hasn't checked it out before now. The first is a lot of missing dialogue from Oscar of Astora. Now, who is Oscar? The fellow who dies in the undead asylum to give you your first flasks. He has plenty of dialogue that insinuates that he is a servant of Frampt, and that he was originally supposed to be met up with throughout the game, much in the vein of Solaire, even to the point of being summonable. If you accept Frampt's path, he speaks of an understanding that he is not going to become the Dark Lord, because you are. Oppositely, he dislikes and attacks you if you are a servant of Koth. The next NPC worth talking about is Shiva, the samurai enlisted in the Forest Covenant. His missing dialogue is fantastic support for the Souls games to be directly linked, and also supports the concept that the timeline of the games intertwines, even if Demon Souls technically happens second. You see, Shiva was originally supposed to say the following: "Have you heard of the Chaos Blade, the legendary sword of the ancient undead master Makoto? Its blade a swirling vortex. I heard it somewhere around here, but I can't find it. It's all I could ever wish for. I'd do anything to have it." Then, when you have the Chaos Blade and show it to him, he marvels the blade and asks for it. This is exactly the same as Satsuki in Demon Souls over the Makoto. The Makoto, which Shiva has already said the name of being his master. If you don't give him the blade, he leaves you be, but if you do give it to him, he attacks you and calls himself a traitor. My assumption here is that in Dark Souls he did not get the blade, in some canon version of the lore, and that's why in Demon Souls he attacks regardless if you give him the Makoto or not. Also, there was supposed to be an item to invade Shiva's world, much like you do for Lautrec. According to this Black Eye Orb, the purpose of doing so is to retrieve the Blade of Chaos. Makes me wonder how great this weapon was originally supposed to be. As far as Quelaag is concerned, my guess is that she was originally going to be an optional boss, one tied to the Chaos Covenant directly. Likely she was optional in that her challenging death would allow you to have the Chaos Blade, through the use of her soul, to show to Shiva, and then who knows what he would drop if you killed him after that. Regardless, Quelaag has dialogue that illustrates that she would originally not attack, giving the player the option to go away, and specifically not defy a pact. Likely a pact with the Chaos Covenant. Perhaps my favorite aspect of all the content that was left out of the game was that you could enter into a covenant with Velka, the goddess of sin. There's only 2 items that reveal this, and therefore I want to read them word for word. First, an affidavit, slips sold by Bishop of Velka, goddess of sin. Annul a covenant without committing sin. A covenant is a most sacred union, normally not subject to negotiation, but when circumstances require it, even goddess Velka will make an exception. It would seem this slip allowed a player to abandon a covenant without committing a sin, instead of going all the way back to Kareem as we have to do currently. The second item is a covenant ring called the Ring of Condemnation. This black diamond ring is granted to those who enter a covenant with Velka, the goddess of sin. It automatically counterattacks when its wearer inflicts sustained damage. Velka, the goddess of sin, is an eccentric witch versed in various secret rites. So what does this ring actually do? I don't know. But it sounds like the opposing player becomes injured in some way or another. Perhaps they took this covenant out of the game because it seemed to give the Velkites, a term I just made up, too much of an advantage in PvP. Unfortunately, none of this adds anything to my theory that Velka and the Maiden in Black are one and the same, but at least it takes nothing away from it. It does make me long for this content to be released one day, somehow. That's it for now, folks. I likely won't have any more Dark Souls lore vids until the DLC is released in the winter. Hopefully that will give a couple videos worth of content, but we know at least because of some guy named Artisan, or Artery, or... oh, Artorias, that's right. There will at least be one awesome piece of lore to explore further.